That's enough. Oh, another question. One more card. Okay, we need birth mothers for this one. How common is postpartum depression in surrendering mothers? I'm sure it would be hard to know the difference between postpartum depression and just plain sadness and loss. Although I guess there might be a difference.
Well, I don't think they're the same thing at all. Postpartum depression, is just chemicals that are, overwhelming the system, and the person feels depressed, and they usually recuperate. But grief, when you're really with your child, when you've lost your baby, is a completely different ballgame. You're into mourning and grief that's unrecognized, that's untalked about, that is everlasting. That's two different things completely.
Yes.
Yeah, you're in bereavement.
A death you can never grieve.
Exactly.
Bereavement.
Exactly.
Well, as you say, it's unrecognized grief. And that's, if you lose a child to death or something like that, everyone is there sympathizing and being there and supporting. When you lose a child to adoption, everybody just says, get on with your life. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how anybody who has had a child can say that. Really, I don't see how they do it. But they do. And they think that, you're just should be able to just get over this in a short amount. Well, we don't do grief very well in this country anyway. But yes, it's a grief. When people say closure and things like that, it doesn't mean anything. When you lose a child, there is no closure. When you lose a mother, there is no closure. So it's this ongoing thing, and it comes through to us as therapists as this unresolved grief. That's it seems like some kind of depression, but we call everything depression these days. If you're sad more than a month after your husband dies, well, she's depressed. Well, no, maybe she's just sad and grieving. We need to be careful about putting labels on things. But
I just would add too that in the brain we're wired for almost like a stuck freeze frame when we have this kind of trauma, this kind of loss. Right? It's different than losing your parents. That's a different kind of. But when you've lost your baby, or you've lost your mother at birth, there's a freeze frame, and life may go on. You get married, you have your own children, you age, but there's a part that's just there, and that's what we have to go back to, and help that person do the grief, do the grieving, and begin to move forward, and just honor this piece. Like you were talking about pieces, I totally do piece work. Mm-hmm. There's a part of you that is stuck there, and we need to embrace it, and we need to care for it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and learn how to manage it. There's a phrase, being adopted is not the condition. The condition is managing the psychological and emotional effects of having lived that experience for both the adoptee and the biological parent. We have to learn how to manage the grief because we're not going to get over it. I'm 42. I'm not so young. And I'm still dealing with it. And I'm like, okay, we have to accept this is not going to go away, because I think that's an expectation too. Oh, I'm going to do my grief work and I'm going to be over this. No, it doesn't. That part of you exists. It's there. And it's learning how to grow another part that learns how to manage this part when it comes up. So what's this other part going to do? What's the managing? Therapy, support groups, aromatherapy, things that soothe and nurture and have compassion for this part that is sad, that will re-experience the loss in a commercial. I see commercials sometimes. Oh, why did you see my birth father and then and it's like you wish you had that. So and allowing yourself to feel that. That's part of the work. It's called mourning. The act of grieving is mourning. You have to release and feel it with boundaries. You can't just do it at work. Okay, I'll cry about this when I'm in my safe environment. It's there. And we have to accept that. Accept it and embrace it and manage it.
And I would add, too, that it's a complicated kind of bereavement that we have, right? It's more complex than other kinds of bereavement, right? And there's shame that goes along with it for adoptees and for birth parents, right? And shame, shame is such an internal feeling about yourself. It's not like guilt. I stole the candy bar from the store and I feel guilty about it. I feel bad because society says I shouldn't steal. But this is shame is inward. It's about ourselves. I remember, early on in my getting ready to reunite, as I did some work, I went to a bookstore to ask for a book. There weren't very many back then on adoption, and I said very quietly the name of the book to the clerk, and he sort of bellowed. It felt like bellowed out. Oh, so adoption? And I was just like mortified, like, oh my gosh, everybody in here knows that I'm an adoptee. Every single person knows. And I had this terrible shame about it, right? And birth moms carry that shame. Right? And coming out of shame is a huge piece of the work. A huge piece of the work. Because once we come out of shame, then I can embrace that little girl that felt rejected, that felt alone in the world, that was sad. I can embrace her. I can take care of her. I don't have to just, get away from her. Same thing for birth moms.
Is there anybody who wants